business too. Now, making that even clearer, the culture is defined by the first 10 people in the company and perhaps the next 40 people after that for the first 50 people total. Today, Juicebox is a team of 20. We put a lot of thought into who the first 10 people were we hire and just as much thought into the next 10 as well. At the same time, hiring is really hard and really competitive. We put a screenshot here from an engineer where you can see the amount of outbound that they will receive. If you're an engineer yourself, you might have received the same LinkedIn DMs, emails, and more. And so as you're thinking about you recruiting other talent, keep in mind that they're receiving a lot of outbound themselves, and we'll need to make sure that your message and your outreach stands out. So what really matters when thinking about where talent goes? First, we should think about the options that they have and how they're probably evaluating joining your company versus joining another company. We think of that in three main buckets. The first one is big tech, FAANG companies, as we might imagine, strong compensation packages, and a very stable job. At the same time, the pace will probably be slower, and the impact that those people are having in those roles is less. We can contrast that with growth stage companies. And so a few logos on this slide are kind of later stage or large stage growth companies, Stripe, OpenAI, and Anthropic, but really most Series B and onwards companies are going to fit into this category. What matters most here is that the compensation has pretty predictable upside. Their stock is likely not going to go to zero, and they can estimate how much they'll be making in future years as the company continues to grow. And they're probably already starting at a pretty good base salary as well. At the same time, their work is somewhat fast-paced, and they still feel like they're making somewhat of an impact. At the same time, there's a lot of structure in place. There might be multi-layer orgs, they're definitely not working with the founders directly, and they have less ownership about the work that they actually do. Now, we'll think about your startup, or where you probably are right now. The reason for an early hire to join is to be able to shape the culture, the product, and the trajectory. They also have the highest variance in potential outcome on the economics of your stock. They're going to receive the largest equity grants in your company, but they're also the most likely to go to zero at that point. And so in some ways, the risk that an early employee is taking on is somewhat similar to the risk that a founder takes on. We'll go through different ways to minimize that risk and sell being at an early stage company in the best way possible. So as we think about what candidates we're bringing on and hiring, we'll want to make sure that we understand which of those three groups are they leaning towards. Most talent will already have an inclination one way or another. We might be able to tell based on the companies that they recently worked at or currently work at, or even what they tell us on the interview. When we're speaking to candidates, the first thing we want to find out is, do they have a leaning in one of those three directions? If yes, why? Which of those things matter to them? And how can we use that to our advantage to convince them to join our company? Now, as we continue the process with them, we'll want to make sure that they're staying true to their word. Are they also interviewing with a big tech company? If so, that might indicate that they're not quite sure in which direction they want to go yet, and we'll have to circle back to selling on why should they be joining a startup in the first place. Now, once we've figured out that they want to be joining a startup,